Okay, we are live. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Hope everyone's had a good Monday. Let's get into the show. So, want to get talking about yesterday's match. Of course, that is something we want to go through in some more detail, some more reactions, some more analysis to what went on at Villa Park yesterday. But I guess we'll start off with some transfer news and some interesting stories coming out today regarding Manchester United and this upcoming transfer window, which we know is going to be a big one. We know we've got a lot of plans. We know we've got a hell of a lot of things we need to address in this transfer window. And I guess one of them, of course, is going to be the fullback areas. Luke Shaw injured yesterday yet again, and it is starting to become slightly concerning if you are Luke Shaw and you're reliant upon that player in order to give us the availability that he has lacked so far this season and for elements of last season. And injuries and availability have been an issue for Luke Shaw for a long time, but it is the right back area where questions are starting to come and potential targets are being named. And look, it's a player we will be familiar with. We've seen him before. We've seen him linked before. It's Jeremy Frimpong. Now, Frimpong, as you know, he's very attack-minded fullback playing for Bayer Leverkusen, mostly plays as a wing-back in a three at the back system, so it could be a little bit of an alteration for him to come in and play at right back. I do think it's an interesting discussion to have because Diogo Dalot is currently playing probably the best he's played for Manchester United, reaching new levels in terms of his overall consistency, overall ability, and what he's doing both offensively and defensively. I think Dalot's doing really well at the minute. And look, I haven't always been too kind to Dalot. There has been times where I've questioned his quality, or at least questioned some of the glaring weaknesses in his game, which I do still think are there. I think his overall game is improving, but there's definitely areas he still needs to improve upon as well. But surely I do have a look at Jeremy Frimpong. I say that could be a really nice different option for us, and that's something we want to have. We want to have different profiles in this team. And look, we got a pretty nice balance at the moment with Wan-Bissaka being more defensively minded, Dalot of course being better in terms of his in-possession work. To go from Wan-Bissaka potentially being sold to Jeremy Frimpong coming in at right back as your second option, or as a different player, or even as first choice, depending on what happens with the right back area, it is quite a big change up in terms of the overall makeup of that side of the pitch, because he's a very attack-minded fullback. He has 18 goal and assist involvement this season as well, so he will bring that to the game, and maybe that's something we need, is more creativity in the wide areas, and Jeremy Frimpong could be a good answer to those issues. Now look, we did have talk coming in from Fabrizio Romano on Jeremy Frimpong. He's essentially saying today in an interview that Jeremy Frimpong's going to have a buyout clause of about £40 million in the summer transfer window, and that definitely makes him an attractive proposition for sure. And I think it definitely could be a deal we look at in the upcoming window. We were linked before. Could we go back in for Frimpong? I guess we'll find out. Charlie is down there. Dalot can do some things with help from Frimpong, and eventually Frimpong can make him his fast, agile, and can beat his man. Good quality assists. Big up to Luman as well. Thanks for joining in, guys. Much appreciated. But yes, Manchester United scouts have been sent several times to watch Jeremy Frimpong. He has a buyout clause of €40 million, so that's probably a little bit less, even £35 million maybe. And there's a concrete chance that he will join a Premier League club in the summer, which is where he does want to play in his career. Now, Frimpong's played in several different leagues. He's a very young player. I do believe he initially came through at Man City as well, so he will know Manchester quite well. He'll know what to expect if he does make the move or consider making the move anyway. But he's a player who does interest me. He's a player who does excite me, and I think he has so much quality in his overall game. Goals, assists from those fullback areas would be very important. Now look, there's issues in his game as well. Defensively, sometimes slightly questionable. Can be a little bit frail in the air, but it's kind of a trade-off you have to make, is what Frimpong can do in terms of his in-possession stuff, the goals and assist contributions. Is that they're worth trading off a little bit of aerial specialism at times? Not too sure. I guess we'll find out on that one pretty soon. But look, he's played at Celtic. He's done well in the physical league there. He's done very well at Bayer Leverkusen, and he's definitely a player to watch. Look, guys, we've got 12 votes on that poll. 42% going for Dalot, 42% for Frimpong, and 17% for Wan-Bissaka. Most people do seem to think we need a new fullback in the upcoming window. I have concerns about left back as well, to be honest, guys. Look, anyone who knows me knows I'm a big fan of Luke Shaw, and I have been for a very long time, but I do look at availability as a key attribute that all players need to have, and it's another injury he's picked up yesterday against Aston Villa. I think it's his third injury of the season, and it's not good from that point of view. Obviously, such a talented player, but can we rely upon Luke Shaw at this point? I'm not too sure. Got 12 likes in the video anyway, guys, so big ups for that. Thanks very much. Much appreciated. Jason Riley's down there as well. I'm good, Jason. How are you doing, man? Let me just quickly pull this up as well, because I think left back could be an interesting position to look at in the upcoming window as well. Let me just double check this. Yeah, because Luke Shaw's been injured quite a few times. I think I've got an injury page here for this one, but look, at the moment he is injured in yesterday's match. He was out for 92 days, mixed 16 matches from August 23rd until November 23rd. Before that, he was out for 2 weeks in April. Before that, he was out for 41 days the year before. So he managed to have a year fit, really, but injuries have been an issue with Luke Shaw, and it would be concerning if he goes back to becoming more of an injury-prone player. Jarl is down there. Shaw is done. His body cannot handle it anymore. Look, I mean, some people do talk about body mass, the intensity of what he's doing, and then, of course, the strain that can put on your joints and on your knees in particular. I'm not too sure. Look, I'm not a medical expert. I would never claim to be so, but it is one to be concerned about, I do think. And Luke Shaw, I thought he had recovered from a lot of those injuries problems, but it does look like they're back now and affecting him. So hopefully he can stay fit. Hopefully it's only a precautionary substitution yesterday, but it didn't look good, and it couldn't have been Erik Ten Hag's plan to leave Victor Lindelof at left back yesterday against Leon Bailey, who really was looking very, very dangerous. But let me have a double check here anyway. Erik Ten Hag's update on Luke Shaw. He was took off as a precaution, but he will have further tests today ahead of next weekend's match. Gonna be an interesting one, that one as well. Luton Town away, very physical team. Jarl is on there. Shaw has had problems since that crazy tackle on him a while back. Yeah, Luke Shaw has had his ups and downs with injuries, really. The leg break was horrific, as we know. He's had muscular injuries since then, but he managed to stay for a period of about a season and a half, 2 seasons under Ollie, and that's where he really developed into a fantastic left back. And then he got injured again this season. He was injured for a bit in April as well. So you're looking at 92 days out in August. He had 2 weeks out in April, and now he's potentially injured again. That has to be a concern there. So there could be called to look at left backs as well. So definitely something to keep an eye out on in this summer transfer window. And I say that because Tyrell Malacia has been out since last June with an unknown injury. I don't know what's happening with Malacia either. I don't think anybody does. But look, there's some other interesting bits coming out of this Fabrizio interview that I would like to get talking about as well. Common consensus seems to be from a lot of these journalists that next week will be the ratification date. It won't come this week for that INEOS buy-in. It's frustrating that it's took this long, but if it finally gets done, then at least that's it. Romano in general have been saying, I think the reality is if it's not next week, then the end of the month before INEOS is officially ratified. I think March will still be a good time to get a director of football for the club. So that is seemingly what the most realistic plan is going to be. It's going to be getting ratification done within the next week. It's going to be getting that director of football in. It's going to be planning for the transfer window. And that's why we're seeing lots of links to players starting to form now. I think some of them are pretty common sense. I think you could make the argument for a right back. I think you will have to make an argument for a left back. Centre back has been a problem all season long. We do need to strengthen there, probably with 2 signings. And I guess that's why we're seeing Edmund Tapsoba being linked to Manchester United today as well. Look, he's got a lot of positives in terms of his on-ball quality. Issues maybe with his aerial strengths. Does he complement Lisandro Martinez overly well in that position? Arguably, but Romano has listed 4 centre-backs we're looking at. It's Antonio Silva, Edmund Tapsoba, Jean-Claire Tadebo, and Lenny Yoro. Out of those players, I think Yoro is probably the one I would like to see the most, even though he is the youngest player there. I just think the potential of Lenny Euro is genuinely um, absolutely out of this world. But that's not my call to make. Jarl says, sad to see Radcliffe is 2 weeks away. I hope for him to come in and run the club now so we can get INEOS chosen director of football and sporting director. They've already found them, say rumours. Yeah, look, I'm positive that the work is being done in the background. You know, even though INEOS have not been officially ratified as of this moment, they have managed to name the next CEO. They've had the ability to do that. So seemingly we can still get things done. It's maybe just not getting done in an official capacity as of yet. But I have no concerns about that. Hopefully everyone will be in place by the time the window comes along and we can have a much better transfer window this year. That has to be number one on the cards. Good transfer window. So important in this upcoming summer. But yeah, look, I think there's some interesting bits coming out of this Romano interview. One of those, of course, is Joshua Kimmich, who is having issues with Bayern Munich at this moment in time. Romano has said here there will be meetings with Bayern Munich and Joshua Kimmich over the next month. The situation is pretty complicated. It's likely we will know major updates by the end of April on Kimmich, and there is potential for him to leave Bayern Munich. Now, would we take Kimmich? I think he's a very good player. He could be an interesting signing to bring in, but is that more of the same? Is that another big transfer on a lot of money with a lot of wages coming in when we necessarily maybe need 5 or 6 players? Maybe that's a cause for concern. I would say it's probably the same with looking at Frankie de Jong as well. I think that's definitely a big one that I don't see happening either. So look, I would be surprised if I would be very surprised if we see Kimmich or De Jong or even Ronald Araujo, who is being linked as well by Fabrizio Romano here. He had said on the Barcelona issue, we will hear a lot of stories from Barcelona in general over the next weeks and months. It's a really complicated situation. Their financials are very bad. They will have to sell. So they will have to sell players, Barcelona. Is there too many players we would want to take out of that Barca team? I think that's a different question altogether. But I think we got to be smart with the signings in this summer, and hopefully running around Bayern Munich, running around Barcelona for outcasts or players not staying there can be avoided. I think that's what we want to see in this upcoming window. But anyway, there is some other updates we want to bring stuff into. This is one of them. For sure, and it's quite a big one. It's about Erik Ten Hag's contract. So at the moment, Erik Ten Hag has 12 months left on his contract. Now, big question marks over the man's future. Will he still be our manager in 4 or 5 months' time? Will he be leading the club forward, or will we be saying goodbye to Erik Ten Hag come May? What will happen there? I think it's very much up in the air at the moment. I think it's more likely that he ends up going. But there is talk about potential new contracts. I guess that's part and parcel of what we're doing as a club at the moment. We have to have these conversations because if we're going to keep him, if we're going to stick with the guy, he's only got 12 months left on his deal. What happens then? You comment in from Andrew, first time viewer here. Just wanted to say, enjoying the stream. Refreshing to see a different face from the regular United fan channel's new subscriber. Thank you very much, Andrew. Much appreciated, my friend. Yeah, look, this is a pretty small channel. I can't lie, but it's good vibes on here. We're all pretty positive, and we all do have some fun on here as well. So hopefully trying to keep it real. Thanks very much for your comment and for joining in as well. Really appreciate it, man. But yeah, look, Ten Hag's an interesting one, and what's going to happen there is really going to be decided in the next couple of months. I think if we get top four and go on an FA Cup run. If we finish top four and win the FA Cup, I think Ten Hag will be kept. Like, I do. I think that's a pretty realistic situation to find ourselves in. If we end up finishing 5th or 6th, we go out to Nottingham Forest in the next round of the FA Cup, then I think definitely I can't see him being kept on at that point. But it's not going to be a decision made by Jim Radcliffe. That's a good that's a good point in my opinion. A really big plus that it will be the INEOS footballing appointments. It will be our CEO. It will be director of football, sporting directors, the board of directors as well with Blanc and Brailsford. Those are going to be the guys making the calls. It won't be Radcliffe directly, which I think is good. He's giving that responsibility to people who are experts in football, so it's going to be their opinion that's really going to matter. But I think Ten Hag's got a couple of weeks really to save his job. We've got a big run of fixtures coming up, some really, really difficult matches in the next couple of weeks. Look, we're looking Luton Town, that's no pushover. We have Fulham, that again, no pushover as well. Everton, Man City, Newcastle, Brentford, Chelsea, Liverpool. That is the next 8 matches for Manchester United. I think we got an FA Cup tie in there somewhere, but those are the next 8 league matches for this team. And what happens in those 8 matches might determine Ten Hag's long-term future, because that's going to determine how the season ends. If we go on a run and pick up, I don't know, maybe like 16, 17 points out of 24, then I think that probably puts us in a good position to finish top 4. But I'm not 100% convinced. I'm not 100% sure that we're going to be capable of doing that. I'm really, really not at this moment in time. It's going to be an interesting one. I don't really want to think of it in the sense that Ten Hag's future will be decided in these next 7 or 8 matches, because I don't think that's the reality of the situation. I think if we end up winning those matches and we end up finishing top 4, then I think that's really good. I think if we end up crashing out of top 4, we won't just have missed out on Champions League football for next year because of those matches. It's what we've done all season long, getting beat by Crystal Palace, struggling to beat Sheffield United and Luton, getting beat by Brighton, getting beat by City, by Spurs, by Arsenal. You know, those are the matches really that are going to cost Erik Ten Hag his job if it does come to that. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. It's going to be really, really difficult 7 or 8 matches in the Premier League. But if we come through it with over 50% of the points, I think that's a big achievement. And I think that probably gets us into the top 4. Because surely by that point, we will be through most of the difficult matches. Kerwin is down there. Don't be surprised if INEOS understands Ten Hag's plight. I don't foresee his sacking unless he goes on a really bad run. Look, I would agree with that as well. I think their plan's going to be to sort the top of the club out initially. I don't think they're even considering Erik Ten Hag's long-term future at this moment in time. I really don't. I would be surprised if they are. Let's put it that way. I would be surprised if they were considering Erik Ten Hag's long-term future at this current moment. Could he be sacked? Probably. It could happen, but it's not going to happen this season, clearly. He will be given until the end of the year. Is it a case that he is an interim manager? Is he a manager waiting on the sack? Or is he a manager with a point to prove? I think that's going to reveal itself in the coming weeks. And I think there's a lot of things Ten Hag needs to fix up on. I think some of the same issues we've had all season in terms of being overexposed, in terms of being a little bit soft, and ultimately having some questionable on-field tactics at times hasn't been improved. I think there's an argument to be made that we're kind of being covered up by the form of the forward line, and a good forward line that's scoring goals will get you points, and that puts a much different disposition on the match and on the club as a whole as well. So like the form of Rashford and Garnacho and Højlund especially will be giving Erik Ten Hag a boost, at least in his credibility at the moment, and that's an interesting one to think about, really. I think I've seen a stat as well. It's something like 45% of our Premier League goals have come in the last 8 matches. Like, that's a massive uptick in terms of our form, in terms of scoring goals. And it's going to be about how we carry that on. Is it sustainable? Will it be sustainable? Can we keep scoring? Can we keep finding big points and winning matches? Because, look, that's probably the first time all season we've won 3 in a row. We got to go again now. Have to beat Luton Town. It's like I said after the West Ham match. The most important match after West Ham was Villa. The most important match after Villa will be Luton. And then after Luton, it will be Fulham. And that's going to have to be how we take this part of the season in. Bourne says Frimpong and Delo Wan-Bissaka can go in terms of the right back. I like that one. I mean, that gives you a nice balance. It gives you a nice attacking outlet from Frimpong. And I guess you've 2 quality options there for that one spot as well. Kerwin, yes, you're correct. INEOS wants the house nice and tidy. If they are to appoint a new manager, someone of their choosing, absolutely. I think that's going to be the case. I think a lot of people are maybe looking at it from the Chelsea point of view, where there was a lot made of Todd Boehly coming in and sacking Thomas Tuchel very early because he wanted to appoint his own manager. I don't think that's a universally applicable case. I don't think that's I don't think that's a universally translatable issue that we can go, right, okay, so Chelsea did it, so United's going to do it. I think we're going to be run very differently. Let's just put it that way. But it will be the guys at the top calls make, ultimately. it will be a case of that footballing board making that call. But to begin with, we need to get that footballing board in place. We need our director of football. We need our sporting director. We need the recruitment head. We have the CEO, but he's not starting until the end of the season, until May. We have Blanc and we have Brailsford. That's quite a lot of sporting and footballing knowledge and a lot of footballing expertise there. Maybe not so with Brailsford, but I think Brailsford will be looking at it from a performance point of view as well. So it's going to be an interesting approach to it. Let's just call it that. I would be surprised if they'd come in and sack him any point between now and the end of the season. If we have a disastrously bad end of the season, they'd probably let him go. But they might also take a point and might also take the view of it that initially Erik Ten Hag was deemed as the man to turn to 2 years ago, and he hasn't become a bad coach in that time period. He's had a lot of factors against him. He obviously has been pulled in several different directions in terms of all his dealings on and off the pitch, having to look after transfers, having to look after discipline, having to look after contracts, having to coach the team, having to oversee the academy, having to do a lot of things that hopefully your manager shouldn't have to do. Would Ten Hag be doing a better job if he was solely focused on coaching the team? I think that's an interesting prospect. But I think we're going to get better, and I would expect to see an uptick in turn. Erik Ten Hag has a week between matches now to lay out detailed tactical plans, work on the issues within the game, and he has the time to do that now. So it's about whether he can get it through to those players. That's what the issue is going to be. It's going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out. It's going to be an interesting couple of weeks, a very interesting end to the season, and it's going to be a really, really exciting transfer window coming up anyway. Rajat's down there. Hey, Frimpong is going to have to be Wan-Bissaka's not good enough for Ten Hag's press. Do we get 35-40 million back? Give Højlund about 7.5 against Aston Villa. Left back is Malacia Fernandez. I don't know. Yeah, Tyrell Malacia is an interesting one. Look, I don't mind Malacia as a player. I don't think he is exceptional. I think he's a very good squad option, and for what, like £12 million that we bought him for, I think that's pretty fair enough. Like, I wouldn't argue too much with that there one, but I think that's an interesting one. I think I would keep him as a squad option, but it's going to come down to these injuries as well. I think we got some really good players coming through the academy in that left back area. Look, obviously you've got Alvaro Fernandez. What happens there? Will he go to Benfica permanently? Will he end up coming back to Manchester United? I guess that will be an interesting one to find out. We have Harry Amas coming through, very, very highly rated young player, but probably a little bit young at this moment in time to be making that big step. Let me just someone just sent me a. Oh, it's it's all right. I was just wondering why someone would send me a DM there. I think it's just bath time from United Agenda. But yeah, look, there's an interesting story coming out here from United Stand, but I'm not seeing any actual credible links to it. I guess I can touch on it if you want. But they've said Madrid are scouting Højlund. I'm very surprised at that. I can't see that one happening at all, really. But yeah, look, it does beg the question. Now, Fabrizio Romano had spoken about this on United Stand earlier as well. He had said that it was probably a mistake. United's plan with Reguilon all along was to keep him for 6 months. The player was happy at United. Ultimately, it was a club decision to let him go. Have we ended up with egg on our face? Good evening to you, Gani. Thanks for joining in. But have we ended up with egg on our face in this one with Sergio Reguilon letting him go? No, I don't think he was exceptional. I think he was a player who worked hard and tried hard for the shirt. But ultimately, we leave ourselves with Luke Shaw potentially injured, Malacia status unknown, Alvaro Fernandez loaned out again. The next left back we have is either Harry Amas or we end up playing Diogo Dalot or Victor Lindelof at left back. And we've seen that before already this season. Now, look, we go up against Luton Town next. I would have massive concerns about Victor Lindelof at left back in that match. Really would. The lack of pace really concerns me in that. And the lack of other options out there, very worrying as well. And look, Luton are a team with good wide players. They're going to cause us a lot of problems in this match, be very physical in the middle of that penalty box as well. And they're going to be a big issue for us in this one. I think it'll probably be Ogbene on that right hand side, and he's been really good form for Luton this season. So they'll have a point to prove. They will be disappointed after their loss against Sheffield United, and they find themselves back in the relegation zone, I think. So really, they're going to have to go out and try to beat us in this match. And they caused us issues at Old Trafford. If I remember right, we were pretty lucky to scrape by with that one. Rashad said Luton have Mengi. They do, yeah, but see the way, even the way Luton line up, it will cause us problems. Make no mistake about it. Adarabioyo, very physical through the middle of the pitch. Lokonga, Ross Barkley having an absolute renaissance in the middle of the pitch, really doing bits for Luton Town at the moment. He's going to cause us issues. Ogbene, so quick, so direct as well in those wide areas. He's going to be a massive problem. Big T's on there. Have no fear. We have McTominay. Razad said, how old is Amas? 18 or 19. Harry Amas is 16, so he's a little bit on the young side, and I think the issue is that in the next match we play Luton Town, one of the most physical teams in the league, I couldn't get behind putting a 16-year-old in for his full debut in that match. But it could be an interesting one. Do we go for Amrabat at left back? Do we go for Lindelof, Dallo? I mean, I don't really want to have to get, quote unquote, as Erik Ten Hag hinted with the central striking position, I don't want to have to get creative with what we're going to do. I want to have a nailed on option in that area. And now it is starting to look like a bit of a mistake to let Sergio Reguilon go whilst Malacia was still injured, whilst Luke Shaw has always had injury issues himself. So it's about how we're going to deal with that. It's about how we're going to work forward from that. And I guess hopefully we'll be all right. Hopefully we can survive, and hopefully Luke Shaw will be okay. Let me see here. I just want to check this here. Oh, no, a DM here. Let me see. Rajat goes McTominay banger head. Yeah, look, McTominay. That is the role I want to see Scott McTominay in. Now, look, I think this season, as a starter, he has been an issue at times for us because we're essentially playing without a midfielder. And it's not McTominay's fault. It's the tactical instructions he's getting from Ten Hag to make those runs. I think we look better and more controlled in midfield whenever it's been Kobbie Mainoo in there instead of McTominay in the last 10 matches. But I will give McTominay his credits and I'll give him his flowers. Absolutely. The guy has scored many goals this season. He's got 7 in the league. I think he's got 1 or 2 in the Champions League as well. So McTominay, a key source of goals for United in this season, and he's won us 12 points throughout this campaign. So I do think it's very important that McTominay can feature against Luton Town. We might need that physicality. He will be useful in that sense. But look, this is going to be a really, really difficult match. And if I remember back, we managed to scrape a win against Luton in the first match this season. It was Victor Lindelof actually who scored the goal. But it was a very poor match, and Luton came with a really stubborn line. We got a sheer lack of shots on target. That caused us issues, and they've been pretty solid throughout this campaign. It's going to be an interesting match anyway, and I think there's things we need to adapt, certainly, from what we did against Aston Villa. But that's going to be up to the manager. He's got a week to do it. Let's see what he can do in that sense. Any more thoughts, guys? Make sure to drop them in. Let me know your thoughts on this ongoing right back debate as well. Will it be Jeremy Frimpong? Will it be Dallo, or will it be Wan-Bissaka next year for you? Obviously, look, the news is broke today. United really do like the look of Jeremy Frimpong and are targeting him, and he has a £35 million buyout clause. Could that be an option that we go for? Could we even get that amount for selling on Aaron Wan-Bissaka? I'm not too sure. Maybe. Big T says McTominay is liked for excelling in his role. The Romtador is supposed to play straight off the radar until it's time to pounce. He's the best at it since Thomas Muller. I think he's just a good box crashing midfielder. He can score goals. I think the problem that Manchester United have is that we don't have the midfield or the team set up around that to accommodate that type of player every single match. Bayern Munich can have one less man in the build-up, one less man in possession because they're so good anyway. We don't have that there when we're trying to scrape by playing Christian Eriksen and Sofyan Amrabat beside him for parts of the season, or Bruno and Amrabat. We don't have the facilities to have that free man in the midfield. Gandhi says, don't think we should be spending on left or right backs. Those are the positions we should be getting from the academy. Ten Hag needs to do that. Well, interesting opinion there. Look, I think Amas is a future left back. He's a little bit too soon for him at the moment. I think right backs, maybe not too many top qualities coming through in the United team throughout the academy. We have to look inwards at what we've got. Um, but look, certainly it's an interesting one. Let me just check one thing. Uh, There we go. Big T, sorry, I agree. We don't have the players. I'm just saying we should build around McTominay, give him the number 7 shirt, and make him captain. Where that goes, De Jong, maybe Musiala or Bellingham. I mean, look, there's players excelling in that role at the moment. Look, McTominay is really doing well at it. I do think that we struggle a little bit when he's been on the pitch at times, and it's mostly because of the lack of system around him. It's about whether that's what we want to do as a team. Do we want to have a box crashing midfielder who's going to find space as the main focal point of this team? I would argue that we don't really have the facilities for that. I think the way we're playing at the moment probably suits the team the most, I would say. I still think there's places you can improve upon. I think Casemiro's mobility in that number 6 position certainly can be an issue. I think you might get something nice if you put Manu, McTominay, and Bruno as a midfield. I would go back and maybe have a look at some of the matches where that has focus. But one thing I really can't get behind is Bruno Fernandes playing deep route. I want to see Bruno as far up the pitch as possible. Rizzako's, I think Garnacho will go to Madrid when the contract comes calling. I mean, maybe. I mean, that could be something you say. I mean, we know that Garnacho came initially from Atletico Madrid's academy. So, I mean, you might see that him going back to Madrid at some point. It does feel like he wants to emulate Ronaldo. And if he ends up doing that in 4 or 5 years' time, I think we'll have a pretty good run out of him by that point. But look, hopefully we can keep hold of these players. It's like I said, I've no concerns about Hoyland or Manu or Garnacho because I don't think we get bullied by any team in world football. I don't think any team has the financial resources to bully us. Not even Real Madrid. Not at this point. Not with how La Liga's money is constantly going down. Not how they have to support the Super League alongside Barcelona to try stay afloat. I'm not really concerned about that. So if Garnacho does eventually go, then it would be one of those things that it would be a player's choice, but we're not going to be bullied into selling a player, and we're not going to have the Glazer pressure of taking any big offer for a player that we do have. Big T says the box crashing. Is box crashing United well? Looking back to good times, I would say yes. It depends. Like, I don't think you really got a lot of box crashing in that team from 2008. Like, I don't think you really got that from Michael Carrick or Paul Scholes. Arguably, you got it a little bit with Owen Hargreaves. Again, even go back to the 90s, I don't think Roy Keane nor Scholes were players who constantly found themselves crashing into the box. And I know Paul Scholes scored a lot of goals for United, and he got a lot of drives from the edge of the box. That might be true, but I do think when you look at it in that sense that we've always had multiple different options, and I think just building around that one style maybe could be a little bit of a mistake because we don't really have the wide players who like to find those cutbacks, who like to look for the passes all of the time. You know, the forward options have been very limited, and they've been very limited in service. It's a trade-off. It is a trade-off, and ultimately, someone far more qualified to talk about football is going to make this call than me. But it certainly is an interesting one. Regardless, let me just double check a couple of things anyway, guys. There was some things that I want to bring. Like, Harry Amas will not be playing at the weekend. There's talk about it going around on social media. You can ignore that for me. I would talk about what was it? Let me just see. Yeah, there's an interesting article here about Nick Cox. I might want to go through that. Like he said, we regular 4 or 5 players flooding the box in my memory. Yeah, look, see, that to me is the difference. We had players breaking into the box and getting into the box. Sorry, breaking from deep into the box, and the wide players getting in, and forward options in the middle. I don't think we necessarily had players who lived off rebounds or who lived off that kind of style. We've never really had like a Thomas Muller type player feature in our team. We've had players who can do that role, but that comes as like an accessory to what they've got. But if an interesting article here, it's about Nick Cox. Nick Cox has been the guy really overseeing a lot of development and improvement within the Manchester United Academy at the moment. And look, there's an interesting article here. I might link it afterwards. But it's from the Attacking Football website. Really, really good. Read on here quite often. But Nick Cox said the academy journey will be preparing the players by exposing them to scenarios that will replicate what they will encounter in the first team, and that has been our change in strategy. So what they really have been trying to do is, rather than looking at the academy as a sense of you're basically just playing football every weekend, week out, moving up the age groups, what they're trying to do is put players in positions where they're going to have replicated what will be thrown at them in the first team. So it might be playing several matches in a couple of days. You might get players playing for the under-18s and the under-21s within the same week. You've even had players go off from one pitch to another one to play for both teams. So that for me is an interesting development that we have done. Nick Cox as well. He started off as a sports science lecturer at Oakland's College. His first job was working at Watford, and then he went and became the football development officer, head of education. So he says key to what we're trying to do with the academy at the moment, and this is interesting. It is an interesting read. I will link this afterwards. But what they're looking to do is push the strengths of these players, hide the weaknesses as well, and try to get the academy playing as close as possible to what we're doing with the first team. And I think when you look at some of the players who have stepped up, we've had at least one player step up in the last 2 seasons, and that's very positive to me, because for a while we had Rashford and McTominay, but we didn't really have any players break in post that. Obviously, look, Mason Greenwood, that situation will discount that. But whenever you look at it overall, not really too many players have made that jump up. Now in consecutive seasons, we've had Garnacho last year, we've had Manu this year. It's likely next season we'll have Shea Lacey, we'll have Amir Ibrahimov as well. There'll be other top players coming through, the Fletcher brothers, Harry Amas. They're going to make that step. And it really is a really stacked academy at this moment. And you see that in what the under-18s are doing in that league at the moment. There are 14 matches played, and they have 13 wins and 1 draw, I think, or it might be 14 wins and 1 draw. Either way, they haven't lost a match all season. They might go all the entire campaign undefeated, and that's a real bonus to what the academy is doing. There's a genuine golden crop of players coming through since Nick Cox has begun his journey heading up Manchester United's academy, and we're adding to it, and it's a very exciting time. Who have I got down below, guys? I can see loads of comments coming in. I can see Harry Maguire down there as well. Razak, give Harry Maguire a 10-year deal. That's the way to go. Big T says Maguire has settled. Are we seeing glimpses of vintage creeping in? Carpi says Frimpong is better than Dalot and Wan-Bissaka. Easily swap Wan-Bissaka for him, as Dalot is a solid backup. I like Dalot. I've called him out for a lot of issues defensively, and I do still think they're there. And look, make no mistake about it, Jeremy Frimpong is not perfect defensively, can be suspect in the air sometimes, as can Dalot. I think Dalot sometimes loses his man. But what Dalot gives us in possession is genuinely elite. The way he comes inside, really good. Inverting, helping us out in midfield, giving us overloads. So important. He can go inside, he can go outside. Just a really good fullback, and that's exactly what we need. Let me just double check one more thing here. I think it was something there I wanted to talk about on the agenda. Yeah, here we go. So this is the interesting status that I wanted to bring you guys on Rasmus Højlund. So according to Revelo, a Spanish outlet, under the instructions of Florentino Perez, Real Madrid higher-ups have told scout Uni Calafat to keep his tabs on Rasmus Højlund. They see him as a reliable plan B or C if they're unable to sign Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland. So I feel like that's probably United stands seeing a headline and just sort of jumping down it. It's kind of reaching a bit. Rasmus Højlund's not going anywhere. Carpe says Maguire will be gone this summer. And Razak says, no big team, Maguire's performing good, but it's because we're playing a deeper line. Look, we've played a deeper line all season. I think Harry Maguire's playing good because he's playing without a lot of stress and he's not being constantly in the public perception. Look, he's been out of the team for a while. He's had injuries this year, but I think he's been pretty reliable when he has played. And I think it's important to recognise that. I think Harry Maguire has been genuinely really, really solid for us this year. And I know he's not the most he's not the most popular player, perhaps. He's maybe not the player who constantly gets talked about in good senses. And yeah, look, Harry Maguire maybe does have the occasional error in him, but genuinely impressive what he's done this season. An impressive turnaround. I didn't think he had it in him, but he did. And he's proved me wrong. And he'll probably go to the European Championships in the summer, and he probably starts for England again. That will cause issues, I'm sure. Carpy says Hoyland could be on a double high. Double figure. Sorry, we've been on high right now. Double figures now easily if the wingers pass. Yeah, look, he's got 11 for the season. I think 20's not out of the realms of possibility at this current form. I want to see him given more opportunities. At the moment, he's performing at a level above what any striker should be performing at. He's scored, I think it is, he scored something like 62 of his last shots. Sorry, 62% of his last shots. So he's had something like 8 or 9 shots on target. He scored 5 goals from those shots on target. It is pretty unsustainable, but it is good evidence that really top level finishing. It is also good evidence as well that the more you fade Hoyland, the more goals he's going to get. And I think most strikers would be in that kind of position. He would have a lot more goals playing for a different team. Like, no odds about it. Big T says, with Maguire's commanding prowess with his head, should we move him into midfield alongside McTominay? I say that there one. I do say that one. Because I remember how Maguire ended up up front one time for us, man. I know it's a troll comment. Rosette goes, Hoyland will not go to Real Madrid yet. Don't worry about him leaving. No, I'm not worried at all. I'm really not worried about Hoyland leaving. And the reason I say that there is genuinely because I think I've no real cause for him to think that. And I think looking at it on a whole, I'll be really stunned if he leaves. I think Haaland might be an option for them. I think Mbappe is who they're going to go crazy for at the moment, and I think that will be Real Madrid's plan. They'll probably stick with that. Not a team they'll have anyway. If it's Mbappe, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Bellingham, Camavinga, and Chimeni, that's kind of ridiculous, to be honest. Rajat said as well, when will Hoyland get to start to get 30 or 40 goals a season, or is it development time? It's only development time. Like, literally, I know we paid a lot of money for Hoyland, but the guy turned 21 last week. He's 21 years old. What is it, like 21 years and 7 days or 8 days old? Like, that's genuinely insane. He is the youngest player, second youngest player in history to ever score in 5 consecutive Premier League matches. Only better by Nicolas Anelka back in the late 90s for Arsenal. That's genuinely a massive uptick. Big T says, do you think it's a coincidence Van Persie has been in Carrington and now Hoyland's banging gold? I don't think so. I don't think it'll have anything to do with training Hoyland per se. I think it's a confidence thing. Goal scorers live off the ability to to have that confidence, and once they get 1 or 2, the dam seems to burst in many senses, and they do seem to manage to go on and get a good couple of goals in succession. And I think you'll see that from most strikers. A lot of players scoring them in bursts. I think it's maybe a very difficult skill to manage to score consistently 1 goal a week across the season. I would argue that's maybe harder to do than it would be in the sense of scoring 30 goals, but you have like 5 weeks where you score 7 or 8 goals, and then you don't score for 2 weeks, and then you score another 5 or 6 goals within the next 3 or 4 weeks, and then go on from there. I think scoring 1 goal per match would be as difficult as doing that there. Carpy says, I want to know the main question most people are asking, is Ten Hag telling the wingers not to pass and shoot, or they're doing it on their own? It's crazy the big change is needed. I think it has to be tactical, and the reason I say this, Carpy, is that we've had these issues all season long with lack of service into those forward areas for the centre forward. I think Hoyland, I think Martial, when they had played this season, have been the strikers in the Premier League receiving the least amount of passes from the wide players in the entire league. So it has to be an instruction. It has to be the overall talk from that sense. And it has to be Erik Ten Hag telling them to do this. I can't see anything else regarding that one. I really can't see another option. who would be telling them? Sorry, why wouldn't they have been told if it was what Erik Ten Hag didn't want to say? That's my concern with it. Look, guys, what are we up to here? We're up to 17, 18 likes as well. Can we get up to 20 likes? Would be really appreciated if we could do that. Would be massive. Really, an interesting show tonight. I think looking at the next couple of matches, it's going to be crunch time for this team. It's going to be crunch time for Erik Ten Hag. Good evening to Emperor Jerome. Everything has been doing good, man. Just enjoying tonight's show as always with the sorry, with the guys. I do apologize. I've got a bit of a sore throat today, a bit of a cold, but we're powering on through. But yeah, look, it's been an interesting couple of weeks for United, and I think we've managed to turn a lot of things around. I think we've managed to pick up goals and pick up important wins. I still think the big issues are continuing and they're not really getting resolved in that sense. And for the most part, that is disappointing. We want to see better from Erik Ten Hag. I don't think he has changed a lot this season. I just think we're hitting a bit of stride and form, a bit of confidence on the pitch, and I think that's really translating in terms of the results. Big T, we have wide players who can't cross and wing backs who don't do enough. It has to be tactical. You would think so. You would imagine that has to be the case. I think, I don't know. Like genuinely, I really don't know. I don't think it's any surprise either that in the last couple of weeks we've scored more goals without Anthony in the team. I think maybe Ten Hag has finally copped on that that's an interesting an interesting development, because Ten Hag was very insistent on playing Anthony as much as possible, trying to play him through the form, but it never really came and it never really improved. And you know, that for me is that for me is a big turning point. Is he learning? I'm not too sure, but that forward line with Garnacho and Højlund and Rashford, that's been delivering in recent weeks. It's really been pretty solid, all things considered. Look, guys, we are up to 20 likes. Thanks so much for that there. Really appreciate it. I think we're going to leave the stream here anyway, but thanks so much for joining in. Rosette, how to connect headphones to your Windows laptop? If it's Bluetooth, there is Bluetooth connections you can do there. Carpe, do you think United should go for a younger, like Cesco Ramos, or go with someone who can alternate? Højlund can sit on the bench. If they get Tony, won't play at all, and it's pointless. I think they'll go for someone with a different profile. I think they'll want to get an older striker, a more experienced striker. I think that will be the plan. But I don't know. Manchester United sometimes operate in strange ways. Jerome says we're waiting for the summer. The main focus should be on FA Cup and qualifying for Champions League football, and to be realistic in the summer window, led by selling and buying second striker, left back. Yeah, I would agree. I think realistic expectations are needed. I think we've got to focus on winning every match at this point. Every match has become a cup final, which is unfortunate. It's not a position you want to be in, because it's fantastic when you win, but when you have to win every match and you don't pick up that win, or you lose, that just hits like a dagger. It really, really does. But it's going to be about how we deal with that. It's going to be how we address that moving forward. Look, guys, thanks so much for joining in tonight. Really enjoyed tonight's show, and have a good night, guys. We'll be back on tomorrow at some point, I would imagine. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch everybody in the next one.